So the interest rate is usually variable, meaning it can change monthly. It is not a bad thing that it's variable, So right now the interest rates are going down. That's a good thing. That means you're going to save money on your operating. When after COVID, they went up and up and up. The Fed kept pushing them up. Essentially, that caused the bond market to go up, which meant our interest rates went up as well. So there's times where that's good and times where that's bad. It kind of evens out all in the end of that. But the nice thing is you're not locked into a super high rate for an extended period of time, right? You're having that adjusted. The nice thing about operating loans are they're kind of like a credit card, only we need collateral and we need a balance sheet and some financials, right? We do not report to the credit bureaus unless you're 30 days or more delinquent, which at that point, we're having a conversation anyway. So when you are starting your farm or when you're farming, and if you're using credit cards to pay for that seed, to pay for the soil, to pay for everything ahead of time, you're carrying that balance on the credit card. And meanwhile, your credit score is getting dinged every time. And you're looking at interest rates that are probably 20 to 30%. So you're looking at high interest rates. The interest rates on operatings usually are under 10%, unless you're super high risk. I have yet to see one that's above 10% for a normal farmer. And by normal, I mean you're growing and selling your produce at a farmer's market, you sell to restaurants, something like that. You don't have to be a big money operator to get that benefit. So that's something to keep in mind as you're starting your operation, or as if you're in the, years into your operation. If you haven't looked into an operating loan yet, it is a very good tool to use as a farmer, and it has a lot of benefits, a lot more benefits than using a credit card. The next loan is intermediate term loans. These are going to be a bit longer. They're probably going to be around 5 to 7 years. Most likely going to be used to purchase equipment, breeding livestock, movable buildings. So if you're building a high tunnel, something like that, we can do an intermediate term loan on it. And usually we take those items as collateral in the loan. So if you're buying just a small tractor or something, or if you're buying a delivery truck, for example, we'd put that in an intermediate term loan. Like I said, those are up to 7 years, which is usually what we call the life of the product that you're buying, basically, right? So term of the loan is up to 7 years with scheduled principal and interest payments. Those payments can be flexible. At least with us, they can be flexible. They can be monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. Those are the options. The nice thing about that is different parts of agriculture need different payment schedules. So like corn and soybean farmers, they harvest like 1 month out of the year. Right now they have all this inventory, they have their cash on hand. Having one payment due a year in October or November is a very good idea for those farmers. For farmers that I work with, a lot of vegetable farmers, we usually try to make them semi-annual, so they can probably pay them once in May or April or May when they're getting their first harvest, or early June. And then also in November, usually at the very end of their season. Some just want that annual as well. But if you can have that adjustments in the payments schedules, it makes it easier for farmers based on what they're growing or raising. And these can either be a fixed interest rate or an adjustable interest rate. I usually try to fix them because it's not for very long. Then you have the long-term loans, and the long-term loans are used to purchase basically real estate or buildings. If it's something that will last for decades, I would consider that a long-term loan, right? So if you are going out there and you are buying the lot next door to start your own little farm, that to me is a long-term purchase. It's real estate. We're going to put a mortgage on that farm, and that's where the long-term comes in. And those are up to 30 years with scheduled principal and interest payments. And again, most ag lenders will be flexible with that based on the seasonality of what you're growing. And again, you can either do a fixed interest rate or an adjustable interest rate. So let's talk about preparing for a farm loan. So there are things you can do to prepare for a farm loan. If you're on this call and you're thinking, I know I'm going to want a farm loan someday, I'm going to want to expand, I know I want to do this, and today is a day to start preparing for that. The biggest issue I see a lot of times with beginning farmers is that FICO score, the credit score. You're going to need a score of like 670 or above. If it's lower than that, it doesn't eliminate you from getting a loan, it just makes it harder. right? There's going to be a lot more questions. Okay. So if you are able to get those credit card bills or those student loans in check now, that's a very good idea. And the more you build up your credit and the higher it gets, the easier it is to get credit in the future. Okay. So it's not about, if I've had clients that have had very low credit scores, and they will take those credit cards and they will put them in a safe and not use them. And within a year and a half, 2 years, they're in the 700s, because that credit score is acknowledging that, hey, we're paying on time. We are lower in debt right now. And that's a good thing. And especially if you're using those credit cards essentially as an operating line to get started, I have seen this happen so often where those credit card balances just snowball, and then it gets harder and harder to pay them off. And in the meantime, those FICO scores just keep going down and down. So pay down your credit cards, your student loan debts, and try to get yourself to a positive net worth. Okay. File a Schedule F as soon as possible. I think a few of you were on my previous talk where we talked about the Schedule F. The Schedule F is the profit or loss from farming that you file with your 1040 tax return to the IRS. The Schedule F will show a history of farming. And the reason we're saying file them as soon as possible is because if you ever want FSA financing, that's USDA financing. So FSA is the Farm Service Agency. They have beginning farmer down payment loans. We'll talk about some of those later. They have loan programs that have low interest, great terms. And if you're looking at that property and you can't afford a down payment, they have ones that help with down payment, all that stuff. But they need 3 years of experience before they can lend to a farmer. And a Schedule F for sure counts for each year. They do take, and I'll probably mention this again later as well, they do take experience into consideration now. They've loosened the rules on that a little bit, but a Schedule F is a good way to say, hey, I've been running a farm business for 3 years. I've had to make management decisions, right? The other thing you can do is build up cash reserves. Having cash reserves in a rainy day fund is a great thing to have when you farm, because there's so many variables that are outside our control. We cannot control the weather. We cannot control our markets. What if you sell to restaurants and then restaurants are no longer interested? There's so many variables we cannot control. So when you are making money, most farmers, when they make money, they just want to spend it. I haven't had money in a while, I'm going to spend it. I would recommend that you be a little bit more conservative with it and build up your cash reserves and buy things over time rather than all at once. So build up that rainy day fund. I just mentioned before, small farm operating loan. I think the smallest I have is like $5,000, maybe 3. It doesn't have to be much, but that person is saving probably about 10-15% on interest. And they have some, I know what their operation is, and I'm not reporting to the credit bureau. They're not delinquent. They're not going to the credit bureau. So when he's applying for other things, his credit score is not getting dinged because he's carrying a balance for 6-7 months out of the year. Okay. The other thing is non-farm income is a strength. When you're going in to apply for a loan, there's a lot of lenders that don't know what they're looking at when it comes to farming. And if you have a non-farm income, they just see that consistent paycheck, right? And I can tell you, even as an ag lender, when I see that off-farm income, I know there's a bit of a safety net there, right? That is a beginning farmer, and I work with a lot of beginning farmers, that if something happens where they don't have a crop or something goes wrong, I know there's a safety net there. There's this off-farm income that will help maintain the farm. Okay. So those are things to kind of keep in mind as you're getting ready for these loans. And again, I would start, if you're thinking today, I'm going to get a loan in a year or two, I'd start now. I'd start building up the credit score now, start looking into an off-farm job if you don't have one yet, file Schedule Fs, all of this stuff. Awesome. Let's see here. Did I do that line? I'm going to be honest, I don't know what that line is on that screen. I don't know if anyone else sees it. So
it's okay, Sarah. You can keep going.
Okay. So what your lender will need for a loan application? So it depends on the size of loan, type of loan, and the lending institution. A balance sheet is most likely going to be asked for by nearly all lenders, and then they're going to need a personal financial statement. Well, it's called the personal financial statement. So they want to know your assets and your liabilities. And basically, this tells us what other outstanding debt you have and what collateral you have against that debt, or what collateral is available for us to take. We're also going to need a projected profit and loss or projected cash flow for a year. So we want to see where your operation is going for a year, and then a very simple business plan. And we could possibly ask for 3 years of tax returns. So a very simple business plan. If you guys are interested, we have a questionnaire we give our clients when they first come on. That is a good way to focus on a business plan and keep it succinct, right? It gets right to the heart of what a lender will want to know. And I'm happy to send those out to you guys. But just basically, that business plan needs to tell the lender who you are and what you're doing. They don't know you. You're strangers to them when you walk in. If you have a simple business plan that's 2 or 3 pages that explains, hey, this is who I am, this is what my farm is, this is what we're doing, it's a very good thing because you're telling them exactly who you are, right? And then 3 years of tax returns, especially if you have Schedule Fs in those tax returns, that's a good idea. But some lenders will need those tax returns just to see that you have an off-farm job, right? To show that there is a pattern of an off-farm job and you basically earning money that can then be used to pay off the debt. So let's look at a balance sheet real quick here. Okay, so a balance sheet, this looks a little bit different than what you would see from QuickBooks, or if you were going to go online and look at Disney's balance sheet or Yahoo's, in the sense that in agriculture, we have 3 sections to our balance sheet. We have current assets and liabilities, we have intermediate assets and liabilities, and long-term assets and liabilities. Most industries, in fact, ag is the only one I know that does this. Most industries will have current and non-current. They'll have 2 sections. In agriculture, we split them out to 3. And I am so used to these at this point that when I do look at those other balance sheets, I probably transfer them to something like this. Your current assets are going to be anything that it's going to be your most liquid items that you own. So it's going to be like the cash in your checking account. It's going to be the crops in your field. If anybody owes you money, that sort of thing. Any livestock that you're going to take to market within the next 12 months. It's things that if you said, hey, I need to pay a bill today, oh, I'm just going to write a check, right? It's very liquid. You can easily pay that bill. It's things that usually may not be there within 12 months. After 12 months, they may not be there, right? Your crops probably aren't going to be there after a year. You're probably going to sell them, okay? So then on the current liability side, these are things that you owe within 12 months. So the credit cards. So this example we have, this farmer was using their credit card as a line of credit to get started. And so she's got $4,000 in credit card debt up there. And that needs to be, ideally paid off within a year, right? Principal due to term loans. So this is the principal payments that you're going to pay over the next 12 months. So if you have a car loan, you pay principal and interest. This would be the principal part of that loan over the next 12 months. So if you pay $200 every month for your car loan, your principal due under the current section will be $2,400. Okay, that's what you owe within the next 12 months. In the intermediate section, much like our loan says, it's like 5 to 7 years is what we're looking at. Breeding livestock is livestock you keep back after those 12 months so that you can breed them, or you just have them, right? You just keep using them. They keep producing eggs. They just stay on the farm. You have machinery and equipment. And then you may have other assets. In this case, I think that $10,000 is a delivery truck for this farm. And if you go over to intermediate liabilities on the right-hand side, you'll see that's the car loan there. So they bought this and they're going to pay $3,940 of it off in the next 12 months. And then whatever is left after that 12 months is in that car loan line right there. The last is long-term farm assets, long-term liabilities along with it. When you do a balance sheet, most lenders will ask for a farm one and a personal one, or they're not going to care if you merge them. I do not care if my folks merge them. And the reason being is that so often in farming, it's a gray area in between the farm operation and your personal stuff. You will use personal collateral and personal savings for the farm, and at other times you will dip into the farm because you have something else is due on the personal side. It happens a lot. So if you'll see below that, we put the non-farm assets and the non-farm liabilities in there. And this person owned a house and they have about $200,000 of debt. So they have about $100,000 worth of their house that they have equity in. So overall, this person has total assets of $315,200 and total liability is $212,000 for a total net worth of $103,200. If you look, it doesn't look like they're a very established farmer. There's not a lot of equipment there. There's not a lot of inventory. So a net worth of 103,200 is very good. 100,000 of that is from the house, and then 3,200 is from everything else. But still, a positive net worth is a good net worth. Next, we look at cash flow projections. So one of the things you'll notice here is we do it by month. And the main reason we do it by month is, again, because of the cycle of farming. This person is starting to pay for seeds and plants and repairs starting in March and April, but they don't actually have income from the farm until October. So they're paying all this stuff up front in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and then October and November, they get paid. So they're having to front, let's see, $500, $1,300, 63. Well, they purchased a bunch of livestock. So 63,000, looks like they're paying about 65,000 ahead of time because they're wanting to be livestock farmers. They've got new loans for them. You'll see up top, we can see the proceeds from the loan was 48,000 there in May, and that matched the livestock purchase. So that's not exactly out of pocket, but still they have all these other little expenses that they have paid for. These $500, $300, $400, $50, this would be perfect use of an operating loan because they're not getting paid for months. And in the meantime, their credit score is not getting dinged, okay? So this person is doing a good job with farming this year. They have the inflow from the loans. Of course, they've used most of that. And then they also made a purchase there in April, it looks like, as well. And there's off-farm income. So this person, part of the reason they're doing well is they have nearly $100,000 in off-farm income coming in. So they're kind of padding what they're doing. Okay. And that family living draw, if they're making $8,333 a month and they only need $5,000 for family living, that means that their off-farm income is paying for all their family living, meaning health insurance, retirement, grocery bills, if you have kids, the kids' doctor bills, all the stuff they have going on, all comes out of that off-farm job, which is nice because then the farm succeeds on its own. It does not need your off-farm job to pay for the family living necessarily, right? You're going to get a better idea of how your farm is doing because you're not dipping into the personal expenses with your farm. Dipping into your farm income for personal expenses. So this person is making enough money to cover the off-farm income, plus have a little bit saved back. Now, with all those investments they now have more principal and interest payments. So this person started off the year with $10,000 and they're ending the year with $28,776. And again, a lot of that will probably come from the off-farm income. If you took that away, then the farm would have to pay for all $60,000 of that family draw. Okay, so let's talk about how a lender makes a decision. So there's the 5 C's of credit: character, capital, capacity, collateral, and conditions. And then in between all that is the collateral, or the decision we make, the collateral, I'm sorry. So then the first C is probably, I would say, is the most important one. It is the collective management skills, the education and history of the customer in repaying loans. The key question is, will they repay the loan if they can? That is a very important question. If you as a farmer are making a lot of money, will you repay that loan, or will you take that money and go do something else? Then we also have to ask, can they run the business? We rely heavily on character because we don't know you personally, right? Not yet, at least. We don't have that background yet. So we need to look at histories, right? And what do we have? We have FICO scores, credit reports, your reputation. I can tell you that the specialty world in Illinois is kind of very small community. Everybody kind of knows each other. And so the chances are somebody's going to know who you are, right? If you are inexperienced and you're having trouble getting financing, that's where the FSA can come into play. And FSA can help mitigate that lack of experience and the risk that lenders are taking on as a beginning farmer or with a beginning farmer. They do at times have some training requirements, though, which are not necessarily a bad thing. If you have past work experience on farms, they may say, "Ah, you're good to go." So, so this is a good way for us to get to know you right away and say, will you repay this note later on, right? So character is the most important. And one thing that's not mentioned under character is communication. You need to clearly communicate with your lender. That is one of the biggest character traits you can have. If you have a loan and you're having trouble paying, don't just sit there and not do anything. You need to stay ahead of it and call your lender and be like, hey, I know I have this loan coming due. I am not going to be able to pay it this month. Can we work something out? You know, if you do that type of communication with a lender, they will work with you as much as possible. I had a client one time that's like, oh, I'm sorry. I talk to you all the time about this. And I'm like, don't apologize. I said, just so you know, it's the ones I hear from that I don't worry about. It's the ones I don't hear from that I worry about all the time because I don't know what's going on. So if they're late for something, they're not getting back to me, that's a character issue. So communicating with your lender is a very big deal. The second C is capital, right? And that all starts with the balance sheet. You know, how much funds are on your balance sheet for a down payment? How much collateral is available if you don't have a down payment to use in lieu of that? How leveraged are you? How much equity do you have in your assets? What's your working capital position? Working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. It means, are you able to meet all your bills within those 12 months and still have some left over? How sensitive are you to the interest rates? And then also it tells us if there's weaknesses, maybe on a management side, maybe there's some assets we can do to mitigate that, right? So it tells us how we can mitigate these risks that our regulators see with some of the strengths on a balance sheet and what's there. So, and leverage would be how much money is borrowed, how much money is borrowed compared to how much is contributed by the farmer or business. Like, how much do you need? How leveraged are you? How much do your debtors own versus you? So, what are some mitigating factors for getting farmer not bringing in a lot of capital? Strong management skills is a very good one. Relatives providing capital and the use of equipment. So if you have equipment and you can borrow it from a neighbor or borrow it from another farmer, that's a very good idea. So there are things you can do to mitigate if this is not quite where you want it to be. The third is cash flow. We want to know how the debt will be repaid. So this would be that one that was the monthly projection, right? We want to see how much money you're going to need and then how much you're projecting you're going to make. At the end of the year, I like to compare that to their final income statement or P&L and see how close we were. You know, if you have a farmer that's usually within a couple thousand, they did a pretty good job of projecting out. It's very realistic, right? We want to know if there's that cash flow from other sources such as non-farm income. And then, like I said, if we have it month by month, we know which months are you're going to be tighter on versus the months in which you have farm income coming in. If you're already in business, your cash flow should be based upon that actual history. Like I said, I like to look at the end of the year ones of my farmers and compare them to tax returns or what we did previously to see how accurate we were. So we need to see enough cash flow to cover operating expenses, loan payments, family living costs, income, social security payments. Because if you make money as a farmer and you have a positive net income on your Schedule F, you're going to have to pay self-employment taxes. So you're going to have to pay income tax plus social security, Medicare payments. We want to see you building up that working capital, so your rainy day fund, and ability to put cash towards replacing the machinery and buildings that are wearing out. So you're constantly kind of cycling money, right? And ideally, you have a 15% cushion after covering all of those for any cash demands you need, things that are not listed there, right? You have this cushion that you have. The last is collateral. This is the hardest for beginning farmers because when you're starting, you don't have that much. This is where If you had a cosigner on loan, that might be a good idea, or someone's pledging collateral. You have a friend that's like, hey, you can use my car as collateral. Ideally, you don't have to do that, but this is where a lot of beginning farmers have trouble getting financing. We're going to look at the loan to value ratio, right? We're going to see if you're purchasing $100,000 farm and the loan is 75, that's a 75% loan to value, meaning we have about 25% collateral or extra equity right there, which is a nice cushion. So the quality of the collateral, is it a good purchase, right? Are you wanting to farm on a swampland? Is that a good way to start farming, right? Is that going to actually bring you income? We usually use appraisals of some sort. So on machinery and whatnot, we kind of eye the appraisals and then look and see on the marketplace what it's selling for. But for real estate, we have to actually use certified appraisers for those. And then we look at like, is the loan term matched with security life? We're not going to put a 30-year note on a tractor because a tractor's life is actually said to be around 7 years. Now, I mean, my farm still runs tractors that was purchased in the 1960s, 1970s, 1990s. We love to have debt-free tractors on our farm. But on paper, there is a life of that asset. So in the worst case scenario, in the go to heck plan, we'll have to sell the collateral to pay off the loan. But there's a lot of conversations before that point, right? We don't want to do that. And to be honest, I've been a lender for 7, 8 years now. I've never seen it happen yet. So knock on wood, I don't see it in my career. And if I do, maybe once. So I don't want to see it often. The last is conditions. Like I mentioned, do we need a professional appraiser? What kind of insurance are you going to need? Do we need title insurance? Can we get a loan guarantee through the FSA? Who is signing, co-signing, all this stuff? What do we need in order to get this approved, right? What do we check off the box? Like life insurance is one that often people think about. If you're taking out a lot of debt and you have a family, you may want to get life insurance on yourself. So if something happens, they have money to pay off your debt. So let's look at lender options. So you have the Farm Credit System, which is Compeer Financial. We're in the northern half of Illinois, and then Farm Credit of Illinois serves the southern half of Illinois. We're the largest farm lenders in the U.S., holding about 40-45% of all farm debt. You have commercial banks, and they hold about 30-35% of all farm debt, and some very good community banks that will serve urban agriculture. So there are good banks that will serve urban agriculture. But I have heard some folks say that they'll say it's outside of their community area, and that's a possibility. But if you're not a fan of the Farm Credit System or Compeer, I can always try to put you in contact with somebody else. I'm happy to do that. Credit unions is another one, and then community development financial institutions. Those I don't see quite as much. So to talk a little about Compeer and what we do, like I mentioned, Emerging Markets does direct has financing for direct consumers, farmers, and then value-added ag farmers as well. Those that are doing, extra with it, where maybe you're growing strawberries and then you're making strawberry jam. You have this value-added product. We have a microloan that's up to $75,000. It's really easy underwriting, quick loan decisions. Interest rates are comparable to that of any other farmer. And then there's lots of business planning help. In fact, I have a couple appointments this week to sit down with some of my farmers, and I help them do their balance sheet. Okay. So our loans, 75,000 is a microloan, but we also go up into 7 figures. So it just kind of depends on what we're doing or what our farmers are doing. I mentioned the Farm Service Agency, the FSA, a number of times. The FSA is a very good resource for getting loans. They offer direct loans to farmers and loan guarantees to lenders. If we have a high-risk farmer and I can't get approval on it just for an in-house loan, my team might say to me, hey, we'll do it, but you got to get a guarantee for the FSA. And that means the FSA is guaranteeing like 90 or 95% of the loan. So if the loan's $100,000, the risk to Compeer is going to be $5,000 to $10,000. And then the FSA is going to take the other 90-95%. Okay, so that really is a very nice safety net for lenders to be able to work within high risk areas. The most popular one is direct loans with, in partnership with an ag lender such as ourselves. That's to buy farmland. So the 545-50 plan is where a farmer puts down 5%. The FSA will cover the FSA will cover 45%, at 1.5% over 20 years. And then the other 50% is covered with a loan guarantee with a lender such as Compeer or a bank. Then there's also 50-50 loans where the FSA covers half and we cover half. And again, they have good fixed rates. Usually they're lower rates, and the down payments they're a little bit more flexible on, because if you're going for an in-house loan with me, I would need like 20-30% down. That's quite a bit of money. So if you're looking for that farm and you don't quite have that money for a down payment, it's a good time to check in with the FSA. Direct loans without an ag lender partnership, so they have a micro loan you can do. You can also go directly through them, where I am not involved as a lender, where you don't need a lender. With those loans, they will ask a lot of questions, and they'll probably ask for a lot of documentations because they're taking on the full risk of that loan.
Hey Sarah,
here's
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to do a time check that we're approaching 2:40, and just that we want to make sure Catherine has time as well. And we're
Yes.
gonna hold a few minutes at the very end for Q&A. So if you
Let me
want to,
get through. I've got
yeah,
maybe 2 or 3 more slides and then I'll be done. So the FSA needs time. So again, if you're thinking about getting a loan with me or the FSA or with anybody, with another bank, you need to start that process early on, okay? So then there's also private, for-profit, and nonprofit lenders. Just be cautious with them. They're not regulated. Just do your research, talk to other farmers, talk to them. You know, some of these we work with quite a bit. Steward, Mad Ag, we've worked with Iroquois Valley, you know, so just make sure you're doing your homework before taking money for an unregulated lender. And then you also can get, you know, crowdfunding, family, friends, that sort of thing as well. Tax lease might be an option for you. If you're interested in something like that, give me a call. I'm not going to go too deep in that because I've gone over my time. And then the last thing I want to say is mentorship is a big deal for young farmers. Find a farmer that's doing what you're doing and learn from them. Learn from their mistakes. You know, it just gets you off on the right foot. So you find these resources that will help you with all this and guide you in this new career. Or if you're already established, be a mentor for somebody else. So we have a Facebook group, but in the meantime here, I need to stop sharing so I can get her program up. And Catherine, if you just want to tell me when to switch your slides, I can do that. I'm going to share right now.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Sarah.
Is that your presentation or your notes?
That's the presentation. Thank you. So
right,
thanks so much, Sarah. I know she, you know, probably threw a lot of new terminology at you all, but we're here in Illinois Extension to help sort of bridge that gap and provide you with some education that you may need to feel really confident approaching a lender or a funder of any time. But before I get going, I just want to let you all know that right now, the way I see it, it's a really great time to be an urban farmer because we have a lot of money that's available for urban farming projects and small farms. There's grants and USDA programs, and we have the ag lending banks like Compeer who are now all serving small farmers and urban farmers. But it is a competitive world, right? So we really want you if you have all your ducks in a row, it's going to increase the likelihood that you're funded, whether it's from an ag lending bank like Compeer, a private lender, the government, or a grant even from a foundation or other private entity. So next slide, please, Sarah. So just to quickly go over this, what do funders expect, right? So funders, whether they're public, right, the government or private foundations, charities, and commercial lenders all have really similar expectations. And they view their financial support as an investment, right, in you, the farmer or the organization. And quite honestly, they want to get the most bang for their buck. So meaning they want to invest their money wisely, support projects that have a high impact or a high probability of success. So and this is really no matter how much, right, your heart is in the right place towards the environment or the community or youth education, improving nutrition, whatever it is. And this, it doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, you're still a business entity. And like with all investments, the funder wants, right, and demand some assurance that their investment is going to be a worthy one. So they also expect this reporting compliance to make sure that you're going to be doing what you say you will be doing, right? So keep this in mind, and thank my former colleague, Martin Bailke, who's the retired grants advisor with Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, for these nice points and reminders for all of us. So next slide, please, Sarah. So there's Sarah also talked about some things to do to prepare. Here's some other ways you can show you'd be a good investment. We know that Sarah and all her colleagues at Compeer are really understanding of farmers, but you can help them and help yourselves out a lot, right? By getting prepared before you approach a lender or before you write a grant. So, write those very clear vision and mission statements explaining who you are and where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. To that 3-year business plan. We also have a template that's actually based on a case study that one of Sarah's colleagues did at Compeer. It's only 2 pages. That's all you need to do. Recently, I just read a farmer's 26-page business plan and I was overwhelmed. And I'm like, I have to work with this farmer to get them to chop it down a bit because I know the ag lenders do not want to read 26 pages. 2 pages they'll feel excellent about. Maybe they'll get as much as 3 to 5 pages, okay? You want it, Sarah talked about financial statements, balance sheets, cash flow projections, profit and loss statements. And then you'll, of course, want production plans and maybe even training certificates. If you've taken one of our programs and have a certificate, that's another way to show you'd be a good investment. So I don't know how many farmers we have online, but I'm just wondering if we do have farmers online, how many of you have at least one of these things or all 6 of these things? Anyone? I'm going to check out the chat to see if anyone's saying anything. You have some of them. Veronica, do you have all 6? Or do you have 1 or 2 or 3? 2 things? Yeah. So here are some things to work on. And these are all topics that we can help you with in Illinois Extension through some of our programs, okay? And that's what I'm going to get to next. So next slide, Sarah. So coming up, we have a program that we've been calling Digging Deep into Data. And what this is a 90-minute evening webinar on a planning topic and with a demonstration on how to use spreadsheets and a free spreadsheet template, followed by some Q&A. And we typically hold these from 6:30 to 8 p.m. After you attend the virtual webinar, you can elect to attend an in-person session to actually build out your planning spreadsheets under the guidance or coaching of myself or my colleague, Zach Grant. And sometimes we bring in guest farmers who we've identified as topic experts or topic geeks on the subject. Or like this time with the one on December 11th and 13th, which is on balance sheets, we're bringing in Sarah Horner, who's here with us today to serve as a coach for the in-person session. These are held at my office at 87th and Greenwood on a Friday following the virtual session. And we give you lunch and your choice of a free farm planning book. So coming up in December is balance sheets, and in January, we're going to cover production planning and cash flow worksheets. So this is just to encourage you to get moving on these this winter and help you plan out your season. So we'll go to the next slide. I think my program coordinator dropped a lot of links in the chat for you all. A new thing that's sort of an extension of the Digging Deep is that this winter I'm going to hold some open office planning hours. And these are going to be on Fridays, twice in December, in January 3 times, and then in February every single Friday. And for this, you can set either a virtual appointment with me or an in-person appointment. Come into the office, meet with me, and then you're free to work in our conference room on whatever it is you're working on, whether it's your balance sheet, your business plan, production plan, whether you're trying to write vision and mission statements, or anything other type of planning topic you're working on. I'm here to consult with you, and you're free to work and use our resources here. I can promise you free coffee and tea, maybe occasional snacks, and there's a link how to set an appointment with me. So we'd be happy to do that. In fact, it would be a great way for us to spend our winter as well. Some other opportunities that are coming up that can help you get ready to work on a lender and increase your knowledge as a farmer about your farm business. We have a legal training series for Illinois small farms. The next one coming up is on December 16th. It's Forming an LLC. This is a virtual webinar that we hold in partnership with Farm Commons. And this whole series covers topics that can help you understand legal issues and address risk, so that you don't dig yourself in a hole. And they're a great opportunity to learn a lot more. Even though I've heard all these topics many times, every time I attend one of these, I learn something new myself. And then, of course, every fall we offer our 12-week course for sort of beginning urban farmers on Monday evenings. And there's a link to learn more about that. One of the things that my program coordinator, Sarah Botka, wanted me to mention to you all is a service that we offer is what we call technical assistance. So this is outside of the office hours. And technical assistance can really be you simply emailing us with a question, any question. There's no bad questions. And it's our job to actually find you the answer. We might not be a topic expert in that area, but within Illinois Extension and our 650 employees, someone is, and we'll find someone who can get you the answer you need for your urban farm or small farm. So don't hesitate to do that. We can also set appointments with you to go over things like your soil tests, or we can do site visits for farms within our own county. I can't travel, to other counties to visit your farm, but any farm located within Cook County, I can come for a site visit and a site consultation to help you figure out any problem that you are encountering. So those are called technical assistance, and it's not a formal program, but something that we do all the time on our team. So next slide, please, Sarah. Oh, it didn't pop up quite right. Can you do another click for me? I didn't order it right. So this is just a little reality check about who gets money, right? And really it's proposals that are well written and applications that are well written, right? People with experience are often better at expressing themselves. And unfortunately, it's not always those with the most need. And so that's why, we are here to help you be prepared so that you have those well-written applications and proposals, and that you get the financing you need for your urban farm, urban farming project, or food system project, whatever it is. Okay. And then just going to end with a couple quotes. This one on the left is from Patricia Wielander. She's a grant writer with Illinois Extension. And she wants to remind everybody that 0% of the proposals not written are funded. So go ahead and write it. Make sure you show it to other people and get some feedback on that, and go for it. But take the time to plan and do it right, whether it's a grant application or a business plan, or working with a lender. And then from me, I say this again and again in all my classes, that we really plan so that we can adjust or pivot, right, when conditions change. And we know as farmers, conditions always change. We need to expect it, and it's a part of life. And the planning really makes that adjustment easier. Okay, so keep those in mind. Next slide, please, Sarah. And this is the last one. This is how to get in touch with me. Oh, I have an old version of this. Sorry, I was supposed to show a version that has contact information for myself, from Zach Grant, and from Sarah Botka. So maybe Sarah can drop all our emails in the chat. You all are lucky you have two local food system small farm educators in Cook County. That's myself and Zach Grant, and of course our program coordinator, Sarah Botka, who answers more questions than I'm aware of and directs your questions to all the right people. And it's not always me, and it's not always Zach. So we can open it up for Q&A now.
Thanks so much, Catherine and Sarah as well. I did just want to ask if folks want to take the time, please feel free to enter any questions into the chat. We'll have a few minutes here. I guess we'll start with Veronica's question around funding for urban flower farms, or where there might be additional information on resources, capacity building, technical assistance for flower farms.
Yeah, we don't personally know tons about flower farms. But they aren't too different from other small farms. So you can reach out with your questions to get started. There used to be there was a school for beginning flower growers at University of Wisconsin-Madison through their Center for Integrated Ag Systems. I don't think it exists anymore, or maybe it will get up and running again. And there was also one, I think, being offered by McHenry County College on the cut flower growing. Yep, Sarah just put it in. It was last offered in 2023. So reaching out to them might be a good thing to do to find out more. In terms of grants, there's quite a few available right now. One that Illinois Extension is partnering with the Farm Service Agency on is called the I Am Shy grant. And these are infrastructure grants, and they are rolling applications, and the money that's available is anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000. And this will be available through 2026. So Sarah Botka, if you could put that in the chat for people, please do that.
Great, thank you so much. And I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong, but Jalee,
I don't know what I'm doing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm not in Cook County. I'm actually in Southern Illinois, Wabash County. And I am very interested in a lot of these programs. That being said, if it's going to be through the Illinois Extension, is that out of Fairfield, Illinois? Would those things still be available there? Or is this just for Cook County only on these grants as an urban farmer?
The I Am Shy grant is only for Cook County farmers. And I'm just sort of racking, Adam might know of more grants that are available for you. Our Southern Illinois Local Food System Small Farm Educator is in Bronwyn Alley. Do you know her?
I do not.
We will try and get her email to you dropped in the chat.
Thank
We
you.
also have Katie. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I'm blanking on her name. Katie is also down in southeastern Illinois.
Yeah. As I did the Annie's project with her.
Yes, she's done Annie's project for a few years now, and she's a great resource for you as well.
I have her number. I'll get a hold of her.
Fantastic.
And then my other question was with the $150 urban farmer program that you have on Monday evenings, is that for Cook County?
That's available for all Illinois urban farmers. Sometimes we have to prioritize Cook County farmers, but we've accepted students from across the state.
And do you know your times? Because I'm in an actual farm group now on Monday evenings.
We only run it every fall, so we're currently in session, right? So applications will open typically in mid to late July and then the program runs September through December for 12 weeks.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have any other questions? I'm also going to post here in the chat a link to a short survey that we'd all really appreciate folks filling out. This helps us at the Chicago Food Policy Action Council and within the GFPI team provide like catered and tailored programming and resources for folks. So always appreciate the feedback as well as
Jay,
with our presenters. Go
I
ahead.
think Jaylee has her hand up. Or did you ask already?
She just spoke.
Okay.
Anyone else? If not, yes, thank you, Sarah. The Everything Local Conference that will be coming up in January. Let me find the date for that. January 29th to the 31st. They've been having a cut flower track as a part of programming for that conference. Yeah, you can either look up Specialty Growers Conference or Everything Local and find resources there. The recording and slides will be shared with attendees and folks that have registered in general. And I just want to thank Catherine and Sarah again for all their inputs and feedback and knowledge around all of this work. They shared their contact info. Please feel free to reach out with any remaining questions. Otherwise, I think we'll leave it there. And thank you all so much for joining.
Great. Thank you, Adam. And don't hesitate to reach out, all of you. We're here to help you realize your farming dreams.
Thank you, guys. Don't hesitate to use that contact information. Have a good one.
Thanks so much.